Welcome, Monique, to Sippin' Sunday, the podcast. Let the listeners know what you're sipping or what your favorite drink is.
I'm sipping the Berry Punch Minute Maid out of the
That's a good
Adulting
one.
is Lit, Not Ghetto mug. Thank you, Amber, for having me on your podcast.
Yay! You're so welcome. And that berry punch is the best flavor.
A message for my adults: water it down. It's too sugary for us. Too sugary for us. Add a little water. It's okay. Dilute. It's okay.
That is hilarious. I'm sipping my iced coffee because I did not finish my hot coffee this morning, so now it's iced out of my adulting is ghetto cup with my purple writing on it.
Is that a glass straw or is that a plastic straw?
A glass straw.
Okay. All right.
Yes, Amazon. So thank you so much for being here. The first question I always ask everybody, aside from what they're sipping, is at what age do you feel like you became an adult if you reached that age yet?
I became an adult, I would say around 16 when
Okay.
was able to not necessarily control my schedule more, but I knew what I wanted to do with my time, and it was always connected to something related to school or athletics or something. So I had a lot of freedom to explore what I was interested in, to be a part of different, things at school. So that's where I felt like, things are starting to, I'm starting to express my agency and my independence
Hmm.
on my own without asking, because one, there was a level of trust there, it was definitely, um, they saw the report card, so they knew I was in school.
You're doing what
Yeah,
you need to do.
I wasn't hiding nowhere else but in the textbook. So it was just like, okay, I know what I like, I know what I want to do, I know how I like to spend my time and who I like to spend it with, and it typically was around people who were in school. So going to college and fully expressing that
Hmm.
adulthood by choosing my own courses, or filling out the financial aid stuff that typically people expect to get help with, or at least are new or may need a handheld while walking through it. You just figure it out.
Yeah. And how did you learn how to figure those things out? Because you are one of how many siblings again?
One of six. I'm the youngest of six. So
Yep.
I figured it out in a couple of ways. When there were people to help, I took the help. I always tell people, if it's a trusted hand, take the hand out. You don't have to navigate alone. So when I had questions, there were people there to help. I took the help. When there were things I had to learn how to do on my own, I did it on my own. Reading the instructions is a great help. For if the instructions are well written and you're able to manage the step-by-step process, you learn a lot of things on your own. And at times when adults were not there, or I had to fill in for myself in that
Hmm.
role, um, you make phone calls. It really, you build all these skills, like, okay, well, I'm gonna have to impersonate an adult to get some help. If I sound like, I'm a mature adult, someone will, take my call and walk me through it. How many of us have made a phone call for our grandmother or auntie, and we know that they can't manage that conversation,
Yeah.
but we help them or impersonate an adult to get someone to help us, because you call as a kid, sometimes it's like, call us back, or you can't talk
Where's
to
your
us.
yeah, where's
Where's
our
your
family in
adult?
the room? Yeah. To your point of reading instructions is my downfall. I do not like to read instructions first. I like to figure it out and then I go back to the instructions because I'm doing
How long
something
it take you to build
incorrect.
something from Amazon or Target or Walmart? How long?
Well, okay, see, and that's why I said like I won't initially look at the instructions. I'll just be like, okay, let me see. And then I'm like, no, I need to read the instructions. So I've been getting better, but I know that for myself, if there's instructions, I am not going to read it first. I'm just not. But when I realize I don't know what I'm doing, I'll go back and look at it. The
Yeah,
problem would be solved if I just read it to begin with. But
maybe, right? Maybe, because sometimes they send you pieces and parts that are broken, or
yes,
they got issue. So sometimes you have to freestyle. So if you don't got the screw, you pull one out from an old set of things
yes,
you put together that have a few extra pieces, and you put it in there. So
and they
that's
always
kind of
send
what
extras.
figuring adulting out as a kid was. Um, because I feel like I was a mature young person,
Hmm.
who was pretty responsible. It it kind of accelerated from there. I felt like there were certain experiences I thankfully did not have to experience, because there were either examples around me, or reading the instructions or reading the room could give you some clues as to whether or not it aligns with where you want to be, and what you value. So
Yeah.
yeah, we all have to freestyle it at some point, but making sure it aligns, right? So you said, hey, let me take a step back, because if I want this to look the way I see it on the box
And not break on me.
and
So,
not break on me. So
and
who put
so,
that at my door? I don't know who that. Oh, I don't know who that is, but if we live, y'all, we real people, we're real adults. People knock on our doors. We're not expecting it. No one called or nothing. So they broke
don't
all
show up at
the
my door
door
when I call
protocols.
him.
They broke all the
Exactly.
protocols. You didn't call. You didn't give me a heads up, and I don't.
I
What you
love
mean?
that. I
But
do love that. Yeah, this is an unedited podcast, everybody. I just be flowing with it. So it's life. You're right, we're humans.
yeah,
And to you saying like you're one of six and like you're the youngest, I feel like youngest children usually are doing better because they've seen what their siblings did that they don't want to do, or they're doing like not bad, but they're the ones acting out, or they're the ones like getting a lot of attention because they're the youngest and because like they're like I
I'm,
have all these older siblings, people are gonna bail me out. I'm gonna do what I want to do.
I'm
But
gonna
you are
clear it
the
up for you.
first
We do both. We cut up when we cut up because we know we're the youngest, and we got a basketball team full of siblings that could possibly step in and intervene. And there are times where if you get it, yeah, sometimes the best lesson is to learn from someone else's mistakes. Why
one.
repeat it? So you appreciate coming from a large family where, generally we had freedom. You like I wouldn't say we grew up in a strict household. We vibed, we chilled. Our family was really like, okay. So I would say we do both, and I dare someone who is the youngest disagree with me because we cut up. We do cut up as the youngest when we don't get the attention, or if we want the attention, we cut up at times. Yeah.
Yeah. And I am the youngest, but I grew up in a unique situation that my sister and I never lived together. So even though I have a sibling, we didn't grow up together and I am the youngest, but I feel like we both exhibit qualities of an only child because we grew up as only children, even though we've been involved and close and like besties our entire lives, but we grew up individually. So I always do wonder like if I had a sibling I lived with, what that would be like because adult me now is like, nah, I wouldn't like this. Like, I wouldn't like this. But that's just given that I grew up by myself. So that's why I feel that way now. But like, obviously, as a kid, you don't have any say. You would just adapt to whatever's going on. But
Mhm.
adult me, I don't think I would like it.
Yeah,
But
and I have a partner who's in a similar situation. He was adopted, so grew up a single child, but has biological siblings that he didn't grow up with, but now has an adult relationship with.
mhm.
So who knows? Who
Yeah,
knows? Because if y'all would have probably got along, your parents would have hated each other. Who knows, right? So I would just embrace the relationships that how they are and where they are today,
yeah.
and just
No, that's
be
true.
grateful you know each other, because
No, I am. My sister, like, that's the thing. Like, people don't realize we never lived together and that we also don't have the same mom. People don't realize that because we are so close and we've been close, again, our entire lives, which is a huge blessing and thing to be grateful for because siblings are not always close, especially if you don't have the same parents or you don't live any in the same place because we lived in two different
there's
states.
strengths
But
there. Yeah.
you wouldn't even know that because that's my bestie. I just was on the phone with her before this. So,
I think it really comes down to what are the constraints, because we live supposedly in a society where accessibility is not as much of an issue as it was in the past. So
mhm.
are those constraints interpersonal constraints? Are they, physical, financial constraints? Whatever that is, if they can be removed, I'm sure there that avenue could have been explored. But
Yeah,
hey, it is what it is. And look,
we got
sometimes
it.
people find out way, way, way down the line they got some, siblings,
Yes.
and you handle it as you go. That's
Yeah,
life. I'll
exactly.
stick to that.
Exactly. So let's get into like your journey now, kind of paint the
Mhm,
picture. I wanted to skip to like one of the third questions I have for you, but I'm not going to because I want you to actually like let's follow your journey. Like you talked about now growing up, your siblings, all that stuff. We met in higher education because we both in that mentorship program and we got together at like a conference or something, hooked ever since.
mhm,
So started with your educational journey and you are Dr. Monique Golden-Harrison. Put some respect on her name.
Appreciate it.
How did your educational journey look, and like what motivated you to keep going? Because getting your doctorate is no easy feat, and you were pregnant too while you were finishing it up. Let's not forget that part. And you
Yes.
have a master's degree, and you have a bachelor's degree. You completed high school. Like, how do
It,
we do all this? And it coming from where you came from too.
yes. So I started pre-K and went straight to PhD throughout.
Oh my God, yeah, you never took any break. God bless you.
No,
Lord, that's a lot of school.
it is a lot of school, and at the time I didn't realize like that was the thing keeping me going. Everybody's got their thing. For me, the structure, the exploration, every year you're entering into a new class or a new level of that content. It was just something, maybe I was warped with it. I was cool with
Hmm.
it. So when I graduated high school, I applied early decision for my undergrad. So what that means is you apply in pretty much December or before then, their actual application date, and pretty much essentially they evaluate your application and you get an early decision notification. So once I got in, it was January of my senior year. So I was like, okay, now I can really focus on getting up what I need to get up, because we gotta hustle up, we gotta work before we get to work, so because we gotta get to work. So I'm like, okay, let me see, get things together. And I arrived on campus and I was in engineering. I declared engineering. I wanted to do industrial engineering. I liked the concepts, the competencies, just solving problems. It was a continuation of what I was already used to. I didn't want to have to reprogram my brain to learn something different because I was in a college environment. I was good at math. I love STEM. That's what I went into. But when I was there, I realized, like, I wasn't, I guess, like getting the things that I thought you were supposed to get, because your sophomore year is supposed to get a co-op or an internship. So I was like, okay, well, I don't want to divert from what I'm doing. I think all these skills and this knowledge is important, but maybe this isn't my career path. Like, and I'm okay with that. So I
Yeah.
had a mentor who was part of, student affairs, and essentially I continued with my engineering program, but I learned a new skill. I learned student development. I've learned how to articulate my own personal feelings, and when people and things were bothering me, how do I manage those relationships? Because I know
Yeah.
how to be me when I'm upset, but when you're upset at another person, how do you then articulate, hey, you let me down, or hey, you violated a policy, we need to hold you accountable, or vice versa. Um, so after I graduated from my undergrad, I went to a master's program where I did higher ed. I thought it was logical. I excelled in it. I was good at it. We won scholarships and things
Yeah.
for it. So I'm like, okay, cool. Like I got a little rhythm going on here. I can talk to people as much as I off the clock. Those people who have the number know they can reach me in case of emergency. But for the most part, we good. I did my portion of my contribution. I like to decompress and go back to introverted Monique. So um, that was a real test, because I was the one of the two GAs in this fraternity sorority life office, and I had no idea. Hey, do your thing, but I
Hmm.
had to immerse myself to some degree to advise, counsel, support, advocate, champion for their values and what they aspire to be. Um, so I realized, okay, well, if you want to come into higher ed, chances are you might get into what you like, but to sample a host of different departments, functional groups, get to know different people, try new things. They were really big on internships and
Hmm.
practicums. So I took advantage of it. It was kind of like, while I'm here, I ain't paying for it. let me
Yes,
dilly,
child.
let me dibble and dabble. And while I was dibbling and dabbling, yes, I was doing real work, because I had to see these people. We dealt with real problems. These were not case studies. When you have a conflict that goes national, and your office is now at the center of attention and you have to address it. So it's real work, but it was my work experience through my schooling experience were just kind of intermingled. So now where I sit, I'm like, well, I did my bachelor's, I did my master's. I do not want to retake the GRE again. The next logical step is just to finish out.
So
Finish
you,
out.
when did you know that you wanted a doctorate? Um, like, yeah, when did you know that you wanted a doctorate degree?
I would say when I got really comfortable with the master's program,
Yeah.
once you kind of once you take courses with certain faculty, they usually teach, the masters and the doctorate students. So once you kind of got your bearings, and I realized,
Yeah.
okay, this is a place I can be. They allow for the topics that I'm interested in, flexibility. Yeah, you're gonna have to navigate some stuff, but I felt like this had the right people, the right place, the right time, and I didn't want to disrupt myself too much to get a doctorate, because
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I'd rather just stick around here. Though
Yeah.
I applied to other programs, I just thought this was the best case scenario for me. So I I was, working with a professor who was doing research on, K-12 education, career and technical education, things like that. We had nothing, on paper that would suggest that our research agenda was in common, but I had
Yeah.
a strong interest in quantitative research and um, doing some more rigorous, just learning, at least for the sake of
Yeah.
learning, and just trying to apply it in those cases where it comes up and I'm like, hey, we can actually test this out. So it was more like a buffet, working at these big large institutions. If you're lucky enough, it's like a buffet sampling different people, different opportunities, different roles, different skills. Um, so before I closed out my educational career, I just wanted to make sure that, one, I felt good about my decision, right? And now
Yep.
looking at
Very.
it, I do feel good about my decision. Looking back and reflecting, I wouldn't do it differently. I think that grounding myself in a process that requires me to change and grow and question and inquire and deal with people who are just coming from their own stuff, that to me, the school was the best place to be. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was a journey well done, and I thought after I finished, I was like, maybe I'll go back for an associate's degree in something technical, like, programming. We're in a different time now, so you can do that from home. You can do that just looking at
Yeah.
tutorials and things. So formally, I think I'm done with collecting a degree in
Yeah.
exchange for, being a customer of a higher education institution. But I'm still a lifelong learner in that wherever role I get, or if I'm talking to someone and they strike up something interesting, I'm gonna ask about it.
Yeah. And so a question that came to me, and one of my friends commented saying that I've been asking great questions this season of the podcast, which I appreciate. I love all feedback, everybody. So please, if you know me, text me, DM me, leave a review, whatever, to share your feedback of the podcast. No negative feedback. I mean, you can give constructive, but don't need to be negative because, like,
Mhm.
I don't. I'm making this for free right now, so negative feedback, hold it. Constructive feedback, I'm welcome to. But how do you feel like you're perceived as a black woman with a PhD degree, and any like challenges or microaggressions that you've experienced with having a PhD degree and being who you are?
I would say 99% of the people on this planet don't know I have a doctorate, and I could care less. I did it for me, for my opportunity to see the world, to find good mentors, to find a community of, strong, intelligent people who have all types of walks of life and shades, but especially, our community. Like, that's essential as you develop into your career, knowing other people who look like you, who are able to advance or navigate some of those
Mhm.
torrential environments, just trying to, work. So yeah, I feel like that was the thing for me to do something that that kept me going and fulfilled me. So I don't have a clue what they think unless they vocalize it. Um, I don't I don't expect much from people. I
Yeah.
expect to carry myself a certain way, and that's just how it is. If we have an encounter, like I said, we'll deal with it as it happens. But I think for people who know me, the 1% who knows me, and I'm not trying to sit myself up on some pedestal. I'm just letting you know how introverted I am, y'all. Um, I enjoy that it inspires them. I enjoy that I have some experience I can lend some, experience to, or excuse me, some encouragement to. I was a union rep, so
You
all
be talking
my
about that all the time. You're like, I was a union rep. I know my rights.
yes, yeah, I want folks to, leverage that. And I'm in community with that 1% is what I'm trying to say, because
Yeah,
they know, but they also know it's an asset and they have access to me and vice versa because we are an asset to one another in community. So if you're not that 1%, God bless. But I really don't have, and there's people at my job and other places I've been who, they can read, they can see on paper, and I don't expect them to be anything other than who they are when they show up at work.
yeah. And another question popped in my head, which I love conversations that not get deterred, but as we're speaking, I'm like, oh wait, like I have a whole nother thought than what we originally talked about talking about. And I think that this will be important because career transition and
Mhm.
layoffs and being furloughed and fired and all that stuff. You experience a career transition. Not well, a transition. It doesn't mean a new field, but transition in the fact that like you lost a job in
Yeah.
some way, shape, or form. So how did you navigate that? Not like necessarily in the realm of like you have a doctorate degree, but I think that the world equates education to like you're always going to get what you want or you're always going to get opportunities. And that's true to a degree. Like education unlocks opportunities for you, but education doesn't prohibit you from getting laid off, from getting fired, from whatever scenario happens in a career. And we're finding that people that are laid off or fired or whatever happens at their job, it like significantly impacts you like as a person, like as just your demeanor, your mindset. And I know, speaking from experience, of that outrageous
Mhm.
establishment I was at. So
Mhm.
like how did you feel and navigate that experience holding a doctorate if it affected you at all,
It does.
correlating to education?
Correlating to education.
Get my big words out, correlated to education.
Well, I think personally, and for many of us, we start to go back to square one, and we really don't need to do that, right? We start to look at what's missing, what we don't have, or you know, if we want to make a career transition, do we need to start at square one with the program or enrolling into some very costly training program that promises some outcomes that we're just not sure. So that happens, right? Where you think like, to get back out here, how much growth do I need to demonstrate, or how much competitiveness, or how do I stand against the current wave of people also looking for a job?
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's natural. I think you can't put anything past us being human in a market that is,
Yes.
heavily controlled. And, as we've seen, like, we could have done things differently, but we kept on going in the same
Yeah,
direction. So,
for sure.
um, when that happens, or when you come to a place where, you think you have to go back to square one, go back to a drawing board, or put more on your plate, look at your plate first and foremost, right? Because removing the job is probably an opportunity for you to reflect on what you've done, what you were good at, what you excelled at, where were the challenges, and where can you put this block of excellence or this block of skill set next. Sometimes we like to start in in career field that we are have been laid off from, or
Yeah.
we're familiar with. I was like, ooh, for me, I'm like, do I go back to higher ed? And I think I told you, I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to go back to higher ed, but hey, I'm back in higher ed. I mean, do you want to work and pay your bills or not? Like, at some point, you have to just be realistic and
Yeah.
recognize that you have to detach what you have in your arsenal versus how it will be perceived and received, and how actors make decisions, because there's highly a chance that these two don't speak to each other, or if they do speak to each other, there are additional factors at play. such as you have someone who can advocate or reference you, or someone who is their own business owner and they
Yeah.
can hire and do whatever they want to do with their business. So especially when these large businesses post a job and it's closed after 3 days or something like that, you can't own that. You can't wear that. That's not your
Yeah.
business.
So then we just need to figure out, how do we as a society separate career from our purpose? As I also always preach, like, jobs and careers are not your purpose. It is a huge part of our identity because it takes up most of our time, but we equate our self-worth and how we show up and like what we're word, for like lack of a better word, to our jobs, because they pay you based on your skills, or pay you quote unquote based on your skills. They really pay you based on their own budgets and stuff. Like, it's not like they're like, oh, we have somebody with a doctorate, all these years of experience, let's pay her like X, Y, and Z. You're going to get the same salary range as somebody else, regardless of experience and education, sometimes based on the company and job and budgets and things. And I feel like that really does get us down. And there's just so many people, like, I can think of like almost 10 people like that I know recently and in the past year or two that have been like laid off, fired, and it's like crazy. Like, it really is wild.
Yeah, yeah, and I say, look, it's their stuff. They're the ones that's going. They have to answer to all their businesses and practices and things like that. But I will say, in retrospect, sometimes we need to be removed from those places.
Yeah.
And there'll
Yeah.
always be another job. There's plenty of bags to be made. And I, there is something to be said of linking your job, your role to your self-worth, because we don't need to work. So, I mean, we need to exist, we need to breathe, we need to have water, things like that. I think
Yeah.
the relationship to work is unnecessary, but we all need to do our work.
Yeah.
So, um, that is kind of the catch 22, where the relationship to work has kind of superimposed itself on our value, because you have
Yeah.
the check that pays your bills, or
Your health insurance.
it's that practice of, if you do your work, no matter what job you do, you made your contribution, you upheld your end of the bargain, you take your means and you go. Like, because it's such an easy way to steal people's joy, because the relationship to work, not doing the work. I want to be clear. The
Yeah.
relationship with work
Yeah,
to
relationship is
employment.
doing two different things. And I like the way that you said that, of
Right.
like our relationship with work. Because you can be
It's
great
extremely
at your
toxic.
job, you can be achieving above and beyond. But at the end of the day, like, if
It's a
somebody's gonna get laid
relationship.
off, they're gonna get laid
It,
off. If your company's gonna shut down, if you get fired, whatever it is, like,
yeah. And do you base your value off of all your relationships? No, ma'am. No.
I'm gonna write
Work
that
is a
down.
relationship. So that's what I would tell people. Like, some relationships end horribly, some relationships, they continue on, but work is a relationship with benefits. So
That we need
it
to
has
be a
nothing to do
human.
with your inherent self-value. If you do work that's great for the community, for other people, of course it makes you feel good. Of course you're doing something to the benefit of others, in service of others. Of course you want something that will, for the time you're there, make you feel good at least. But if they don't, it's a relationship. And I get it, at times it can be a looming thing to decide whether or not it's the place you need to be right now, or can you afford to take a pay cut, can you
Mhm.
afford to walk away. um, Everybody has their process in deciding when enough is enough, but
Yeah.
it can never, you can't allow that relationship to matter more than how you feel about yourself in every
Yeah.
relationship. Like, you gotta feel something for
Yeah.
yourself, because relationships go bad, they go awry, they end. So you got to
Yeah.
keep yourself together, with your community, with your resources, making good decisions that will help in the long run set you up for when it's time to say toodles, or you get the boot like I did It's
And
like,
me,
okay,
we all
we
got the boot.
we
Like,
do it. And I've never like I've been in school my whole life, so my work relationship has always been tied to an academic purpose.
well,
So
that's
I've
so true
never
too.
experienced being fired or laid off. It was just kind of like you done with your program, you graduated, go, you on to the next thing. So that was an experience for me
That's so true.
happening to both of us. Like how do
The
you
job that you had before this one was your first professional job without you being in school.
yes.
Wow, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, that's a transition in itself because when it's tied to academics, it's different. They're not really going to let you go. You're doing something you enjoyed. It's tied to your program. Wow, good for you, leveling up in adulting.
How you're evaluated is differently, I will say,
Yeah,
because
for
if you're
sure.
not progressing towards degree completion, they'll let you know.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
it's all about how they evaluate the performance, and we all have to understand that it is a relationship. We all evaluate our partners, we
Yeah,
evaluate our parents, we evaluate our kids, we evaluate ourselves. So in your self relationship, work cannot be the most important thing. It's you and you. So it's gonna happen.
yes,
Crap gonna happen. I was told I concur. Shit gonna happen. It's their shit. They can have it. It's cool. Um, it's better to thug it out with people you care about, people who gonna look out for you, than to be in a place where you on an island or you always got to
yeah,
look over your shoulder.
yeah,
I'd rather be here than somewhere. I guess my bills are paid, but I'm miserable.
yeah. That was all. Yes, yeah, for sure.
Y'all send
Transition.
that message. Work is a relationship. I don't want to hear nothing about. Don't let them people anger you. I tell my husband,
Yeah,
I'm on a mission to ensure my friends don't be bothered by these people. That's
yeah.
my goal, to encourage people to let them know you're not tripping. But how we gonna move on, sis? What you doing later?
Yeah, no, that's what you literally said to me. You're like, okay, cool, but like, what are we doing to these raggedy people? Like, what's happening? Like,
we,
what's the
we don't need
exit?
to commiserate with the miserables. Like
Yeah,
we don't have time for it. Like it's a
yeah, no,
relationship, and if it ain't working out, I'm not pulling no energy towards it.
yeah. Transitioning to the work that does not pay you money and dollars that you hold as one identity, well, not one identity, two identities. You're a mother and a wife.
Mhm.
So, how do you navigate being a millennial mother and wife in this day and age?
By being as old school as possible.
No, you do really remind me now of like our aunties and uncles and like our grandparents a little bit sometimes.
They had the confidence. They knew to a certain extent they got some things right. You have to give credit where credit is due. I
Yeah,
witnessed someone, I was the last one, so I can't say I seen her raise 5 kids, but I was the fifth, so there's evidence that these people raised 5 kids. And hey, it ain't easy. I just think that for the most part, it's just a matter of recognizing what works for you and your family, and picking a partner and their community. Don't just pick the partner, pick them in their community. Understand where their limitations are. You understand where your community's limitations are. And, you're an adult, so you're going to make your own decisions, but it does take a village, and it does take people making some adjustments to step in and help and fill things. And I'm very grateful. I think I ain't gonna do this again, but
yeah. You said that from the beginning. You said, "I this is one and done. I'm done. This was great. We
they
love
could have
Sydney,
gave me a
but
cane. They could have gave me a cane at the hospital. I'm still upset about that. But yeah, it's a major decision, of course, and it's not easy. But I think what makes the journey fun is that there's a community there that allows us to continue to individually grow, professionally grow, take some personal time. She can develop relationships with her grandparents and other friends. It's
yeah." Well, I think I saw this on some other episode. The listeners are probably like, "Girl, you always saying the same thing." Well, I done now. This is episode 20 something. I'm bound to forget what I've said on this thing. But I love that the millennial parents, and especially in my friend group, I feel like they are prioritizing themselves a lot. but it's not making you any less of a parent. Like, you are relying on your community, you're asking for help, you're able to go on your own trips, you're able to do stuff by yourself or just you and your partner without your child, but you're also creating the experiences still with your child. And I think that from our parents and grandparents, they'd be like, "Oh, you never with the baby. You're leaving the baby here. You're leaving the baby there." I need some time too. Not me, because I don't have any kids, but like, the parent needs some time too to
Mhm.
do what they want to do. And there's a way that you can do it, in my eyes, that is a balance that you're there for your child, you're creating memories, you're not like leaving your child astray, but you're also taking care of yourself. Because if you're not taking care of yourself, how are you gonna take care of these kids?
Yeah, and obviously the individuals who are creating the child matter, and
Yeah.
mattering even more so is who do you trust when you are not your best. So if we're both under the weather or I'm out of town or something, there are people that we trust that we know will commit to her schedule, commit to the things that we've been instilling in her, and allow her to be herself and in a safe way. So um I'm still learning this little person. So she's going to be 3, and she's her, she's pretty chill, but
She is.
who knows?
Yeah.
I'm just hoping that the experiences, the exposure, the love, the care, she'll she'll kind of use it to move in a direction that makes sense for her. So
Yeah. And I mean, I think she definitely will, because of just the community that you have that's around you, that is everything that she's experiencing now as a child, because what you experience as a child significantly matters. And if you don't experience certain things that you need as an adult, you need to figure out when is the moment that you're like, I'm going to do this for myself to be better. You can't just
mhm.
continue on saying, well, as a child, this happened, as a child, that happened, as a child, this. That is
Yeah,
a reason it impacts you, yes. But as an adult, you need to make a decision to figure out how to navigate that. Therapy. We always mention therapy. That's a
yeah,
great way.
yeah.
Talking to people that might have experienced what you did, like meditating, figuring out how do I just woosah and then
And
regroup,
you
get
can
myself
you can
together.
ask yourself the questions that you ask a child, especially if you're trying to do some introspective work.
Go back to
Why
what we
do you
did as a
feel that way?
kid.
Yeah, why do you feel that way? What's going on? Do you want to talk? How do you feel? So I think not we, I think that
Adults
there are
overcomplicate things.
sometimes we got to keep it simple sometimes.
Keep it simple,
Um,
stupid. Kiss.
don't call people stupid. I think that a lot of times people don't know because while you're adulting or trying to figure out who you are also responsible for the development of someone else, or you're
Yes.
in a situation where it's hard to focus on yourself and on your parenting responsibility. So nothing is when you're raising a child, there are many temporary experiences. Um, while I hope they still remain temporary as she gets older, so that we can continue to, reflect on things that was old behavior versus,
Yeah.
trying to work on continuing behavior. But that's the same in us too. Like
Yeah.
if you make a mistake, apologize to yourself, apologize to your kid, apologize to your partner, apologize.
Apologize to your kids. Say that again, because the black parents don't know how to do that. So,
Look, hey, I get it. I get it. It doesn't make it right, but I totally understand that a lot of us are still waiting on that damn apology. And you know what? As to be quite honest with you, some people will pass on and you won't get it. So you have to forgive them and forgive yourself for holding out for someone to apologize to you when you could
yeah,
have just been doing what you had to do.
exactly.
Yeah, so I don't want to perpetuate that feeling. I don't want my child to not feel like she doesn't really know who her parents are or doesn't have an understanding of who I am through other people. Because I
Hmm.
think that's very important to understand who your parents are as a person through their relationship with their friends or their siblings or their, people in their circle. So I try to
Yeah.
demonstrate that around my friends, I want to portray friendship. I want to portray sisterhood. I want to portray, come on, have something to eat. Let's chit chat. Let's catch up. Or if we're at a
You
rugby game,
include
I'm
her
showing
like
some
on.
teamwork.
You
I'm
include her
introducing
on the phone
my team.
calls too. You'd be like, "Oh, I'm on the phone. Like, here we are, FaceTime. Come on, Sydney." She'd be
I
hanging up on
explain
me,
things.
but
Yeah, yeah. I explained things to her even when she was, weeks old, months old. Like I want you to understand that. if you're allowed to play and manipulate with it, then we should also understand its purposes and uses, so that once you kind of understand how we operate in it, you can be creative, or you can, you know,
Yeah.
try to figure out what fits into what makes sense for her. I'm not trying to put the only thing I'm really trying to put the rails on is safety and
Yeah.
learning
Understandable.
and trust, like building our relationship, managing that relationship. So
Yeah.
everybody else has to manage their own relationship with her. But as a mom, I have to teach her how to develop those relationships and how to maintain them and how to evaluate them, how to
Hmm.
evaluate how you feel when you're around people. Because my aunt will tell you, when I was young, I had zero tolerance for silly adults. I was that type of kid. Therapy help. Thank you. But I really was that type of kid who maybe was a little mature. I seen things and I couldn't deny what I saw. So when people said, no, this wasn't it, this ain't true, eventually you have to start trusting yourself, because other people will leverage your uncertainty, or
Yeah.
your doubt, your self-doubt, and your self-esteem. If you have low self-esteem, they'll leverage that against you to try to manipulate you
Especially as a
and write
kid.
the narrative.
Yeah, because today I was speaking with middle school students, and what I like find just working and talking to teens often is that like giving them just an opportunity to speak and ask questions is like the best thing for them, because adults sometimes will try to silence them. They will say like no, no, that's not it, and
Mhm.
the adult is like rewriting the narrative for the child because that's what the adult wants them to like think or know. But if you really listen to middle school teenagers, like they're even younger than that, like they know what's going on, like they're
Yeah,
not silly. And I
yeah,
think that if we really listened to kids and let them express themselves and didn't get to that point where you're kind of like shh, like go
yeah.
back, like adults are talking, like you're a kid, that things could be in a better place.
And you learn how to protect or cover the wrong behavior, because
Yeah.
people have no problem talking about good things. People have no problem talking about when, you know, they did something that made them happy or was a good thing. But it's hard to own up to some things that, even like, I used to tell people, y'all been doing this since I was a baby. Y'all been adults since I was a child. So,
Yeah.
whatever y'all got going on, it's been going on for a while. And I'm gonna let adults be, because I got my own thing I'm working on here. I got my own stuff I need to focus on. But as a child, you really start to analyze and realize that, does this person deserve the respect that they're requesting? Or do I have to move a little bit differently? Or do I have to kind of slide to the side when I'm around them, because I know some things, or something has been brought to my attention.
Yeah. And a theme that I'm hearing from like you talking about like your educational journey, job transition, and then like being a mom and just like how you grew up or were raised is like decision making. Because it
Yeah.
seems like you've always known how to make a decision that would be the best for yourself in the scenario or situation you were in at the time, and then like how do you kind of make a decision for your future self as well, because even with you going for like school from pre-K to doctorate, like that's a long time, and I know I've known you for most of it, but that's a long time. When you really put it like that, I was like, wait
Yeah.
a minute, like that's a long time.
Yeah.
But that decision and sacrifice you made then helped you to be where you are now. Your decision and sacrifice to even just go to college, coming from Newark, New Jersey, and the environment that you were raised in, got you again to your master's degree, to your doctorate degree, got
Mhm.
you to being like the mom that you are now, like the wife that you are, like everything that you're doing now. But it goes back to your decision making and wanting to make the best decision for yourself. And you've expressed a lot of ways that people can do that too, by like having a community, knowing where to go for resources, asking for help. That was the first thing you said, and I wrote that down first. Asking for help
Take
is
a
the hardest
trusted
thing.
handout. Take a
Yeah, the
trusted
trusted
handout.
handout. Yes. Yeah,
A trusted
trusted
handout.
keyword.
Don't just take any handout. Take a trusted handout, or a trusted hand up. You know, there are
Yeah.
plenty of times where my advisor, alley oop, right? They know you can do the work. They know your work style. sometimes we are in positions that we're privileged to be in because we get the alley oop from an advisor. We don't have to go through formal interviewing processes. So
Yeah.
where we see that as a on a larger scale in the workforce where people are, looking out for each other, or bypassing some of those, you know, barriers and boundaries to
Yeah.
employment, we benefited sometimes from that too. So I want to acknowledge and thank people for giving me a hand up and a trusted hand out to learn and get the opportunities where I needed them. So
Yeah.
that's a part of this is decision making too. Know where you can get your whole foot in. Like it's okay
Yeah.
to know that. It's okay to network and communicate with people, have alliances that, you know, y'all share a mutual desire or outcome that y'all can partner on and collaborate with.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah.
and trust yourself. If it doesn't feel good, talk to people, tell people how you feel, ask people what you need. Sometimes we don't need advice, we just need people to hear what's happening, hear exactly how our body is physiologically recounting what is happening to us, and just allow us to get it off our chest. Sometimes
Yes.
you just need that space, and then sometimes you need somebody to be like, you're wrong, right? And then you move on and you pivot. But um and hopefully if you kind of align your decision making, you won't decide to make work most important, because
No,
decision
that's literally like on my third point.
you it's about doing what's best for you, and
Yeah.
putting work as a relationship before you. I'm gonna tell you, it's not what's best for you. Everyone
Yeah.
says if you pass on, they're gonna replace you. Fine, it's their shit, let them do it. But it's okay
Yeah.
to realize like, okay, I'm gonna be here when I'm here, and I'm not gonna be here when it's no longer my time to be here.
Exactly. Wow. Yeah. And that was about to be the third point I wrote down because I wrote down like trust yourself, know yourself, and then like jobs are not your purpose. And I like when you said like don't base or do you base your relationships off wait, do you base your worth off of all of your relationships? And you really don't. Like if I think about like my relationship with anybody and how they feel about me, that's not how I feel about myself, and I'm not questioning how others feel about me when I'm thinking about myself. So if we translate that to work, like you're completely right.
Yes. Yes. And it will probably, we got to probably do another podcast on connecting this work relationship and perfectionism thing, because I
Yeah.
promise you, if you just show up and you recognize what you're here to do, what's your purpose, not in this grand capital P purpose, but
Yeah.
what am I expected to do and what can I accomplish for today? Because it'll be here tomorrow and the day after and the day after. So as long as I'm able to maneuver in, through, and out of this building, no problem.
Yeah. Something that I've like really been like thinking about a lot with work because again, I love my job now. I say it all the time just because the good Lord's brought me through some struggles of work, but like to like my job now is really great for me and huge. But I do think about like the work is always going to be there. And then what I really think back to, like this is getting back to like the basic days of work and especially for like what I'm doing of like working with people and students. I'm like, who started this? Because like if I just was like, I don't want to do any of this anymore, like it would be okay. The world will keep turning. So it's like, how did we decide like people need to be talking to students to get them to college? People need to be talking to students to get them to jobs. People need to be talking to people about how to build the roadways, like how to look at the stars. Like where did this come from? Like that's a real like we would have to sit and like think and reflect and we probably wouldn't really find an answer, but it kind of was like who just thought to make this up and why? And who thought this job was necessary? Like, I feel like, yes, my job is necessary, but like, big picture, like, why do we think some of these things are things we need to do and be doing for work? Like, this is, it's too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was like a rant,
and,
and
and
like, I didn't
sometimes
really
and
get all my
sometimes
thoughts
going
out.
there is beyond what you have the mental and emotional capacity to dive into. As you peel back those layers, it might reveal, or the energy it might take to go down that path is just, it's worth it to do the work, of course, to your point. But while we try to understand what and who is at the root cause of it all, um the people who know.
Well, even
The
it's like
people
when
who
people
know
are like making up titles and stuff, it's like, what is this? Why do we need this? Like, what is this?
again, I think there's just so much Like it's like that kitchen sink ideology, and you got one administration, this is going down, and after an administration, that impact is carried out, well after those people are gone. So I see why we evaluate policies and not people, but I do also think that we have to start getting to the root cause of people's intentions, and who's in the room, who's not in the room. People are trying to do that work, of course, but
Yeah.
I think it's going to take some time for people to start telling the truth. The real people who were in those spaces, in those rooms, helping to facilitate that stuff,
Yeah.
they have to stand on their truth and confess, because it's all speculation unless you were in the room, unless you
Or it was
conspired,
documented.
whatever the words are, right? So we not speculation in the sense of you're not certain, but speculation in the sense that we know what's happening, we know that there's something going on, or we have a sense
But they're
that,
talking around it. Like that's one thing
yeah,
about work. I hate when people aren't direct and there's politics of like, oh, like we're not gonna say this because we don't want to upset Johnny. We're not gonna say that because so and so's mom was involved and she's a donor. Or we're not gonna say that. I don't care who's giving what. This is not right.
but that's when we start to prioritize the structure over the human, because we yield to where the power is, right? Especially when
Yes.
if there's an incident that happens, and you saw it, or you were the person receiving that behavior, and everybody around you is like, oh, I didn't think it was that, or you're wrong, it wasn't that, I think it was something else, so you're just reading into it, you're always playing the race card, things like that. I When people yield to that type of behavior, I tap out. Y'all
You
gonna
make the
argue amongst your
decision
damn self.
to go ahead. Exactly.
Yeah, y'all gonna argue amongst your damn self. If that's what y'all believe, and I'm telling you as the person who was, a part of that situation, and y'all all want to then rewrite the narrative for me, or, volunteer to be someone's legal advocate in a conflict, no, I'm good. Y'all got it.
Yeah.
Y'all got it. Because if y'all are willing to corral and deny, I know y'all want to do some other shit. So I'm good.
And
I'm
this
good.
goes
It's
back
okay for
to
me to realize that we don't need to talk to each other.
And that just goes back to that jobs are not for the people, like at all. It's for, like you said, policy over the human, or like just just nonsense. The workplace is
It's
crazy.
it's like going, it's like the workplace is where you go on a date and you meet up with someone at this restaurant. That's the workplace. And you're trying to build, a relationship or
Yeah,
portfolio through work. So you go to this restaurant, you're having a conversation with this person, it goes left. You got to leave the restaurant to lead the person too. Like, I'm
yeah,
sorry. Like, you break up with your supervisor. Sometimes you might be able to move to another table, or they got another floor or a little separated area. But for the most part, when the people in that building are part of that infrastructure too. Like, I
yeah.
don't like to separate them. Like, I humanize people, but I am careful to separate them beyond the function of why we're here.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
exactly. Because it's
people
more so
make
like
work
about,
friends. Yeah, like, people make work friends. I'm not saying don't do that. I'm saying be mindful that you may seek friendships at work, but again, it's a work relationship.
yeah.
So, where you're seeking in true friendship and genuine friendship, a work relationship cannot necessarily guarantee that. It can
And also
guarantee
it's more
work if it's there, but it'll leave you if the work's no longer there.
yeah. And then it's like the with your thing of saying like the people and like remembering why you're there, it's like the people are in these positions, so even if you separate like the person, like the personality, like if you like them as a person or not, thinking about them even just in their position and their function and what they're supposed to be doing or they're not doing contributes to you being irritated, or you whatever your frustrations and stuff are there. And that's what I always think about at work. Like, there thankfully aren't actually many people at my workplace that I don't like as people. But again, we're not friends. Let's make that clear. Like, nobody at work right now is my friend. We're work friends. Like you said, the relationship is strictly tied to work right now. That's not to say if I left, I wouldn't be talking to them still if they're that continued. But right now, they're
But
all work friends.
what you ascribe to that relationship is these people I work with, so I
Yes.
approach them with a certain level of respect and
Yes.
recognition so that we can do work. We can do
Yeah.
the work. Like,
And then when I think about like not even frustrations, but like just if stuff annoys you at work, I'm like, this is more so like the person in their position, not the person. Like I'm not ever really irritated. And once I close the laptop, I'm done because the day is done. We'll repick this up tomorrow. So I do feel like people who are leading with like emotion at work and stuff, it's too much. And that's like when you say you let people argue with themselves, if the conversation is going in a majority direction that I don't agree with, I'm like, cool, let's just do that. Sign me up. Because I'm not going to sit here going back and forth, trying to make PowerPoints and plot twists and percentages of why. Okay, do that. It won't work, and we'll revisit and be right back
you
to
know
this
how it goes.
conversation. But okay.
And that's all to your point. That is, adulting is active and at some and a lot of times you're thinking ahead, but not that far ahead. Because I'm thinking in the next 5 minutes, how should I conduct myself
Yeah.
before I make a misguided decision? So that active decision making, like, okay, I'm gonna let y'all argue amongst yourselves. I'm gonna remove myself from this situation. I'm going to, be mindful and careful around certain people because of the behavior I've observed. They don't make me comfortable. So if my job is to make the best decisions for me to navigate spaces temporarily so that I can go back to the place that brings me peace,
Yep.
that's what I'm focused on. That's my purpose, to go, get my bag, go home, be at peace. So
Yes.
everyone has to decide what that adulting map looks like for you. Because I leave home, go to work, collect my bag, come home, be at peace.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything else is extra.
Everybody has to be the CEO of your own life and make decisions for yourself, which I think like I like reiterating and like pulling it back together because your path and your journey is very unique. Like and how you've gone through everything, and so like listeners might be like, oh, like I don't go to doctor or this didn't apply to me or whatever. But I think that from your story, the theme is decision making. Everybody. So how do you make the best decisions for yourself with what you know at the time, with relying on others, with just what you want for your life out of the future? How do you make decisions that get you to what you're trying to do in work, in relationship, in education, in just you being a human,
Yes.
parenthood?
And you
Make
got to be willing to do the work, not go to work. We all got to go to work, but we don't all do our work. So
your
that's
self
what I
work,
believe. Yeah.
everything,
Yes.
everything.
Yes. So work is a relationship. We are not putting work as a relationship above our own personal relationship with ourselves. We are stopping that in 2024. Please.
I was like, when
It
you
is
said
good to like what you
2024,
do. It's good to like to pay your bills, but that's just about it.
yeah.
It gives.
When you said 2024, I was like, wait, are we in 2024? We are. We're in March. It's
Yep.
crazy.
Yep. And I was
But
right in February a couple days.
but thank you very, very much for being here, Monique. This was great. Not talked. What's the word? We covered a lot. There we go. That's what I'm trying to say. We covered a lot in this time together, and let the listeners know where they can find you, how they can follow you, reach out to you, whatever it is that you would like to share with them.
I guess you can follow me on Instagram. I'm not really active, but I used to do some perfectionism workshops, and I think this work relationship and perfectionism thing could be a possibility. So if you're interested, follow me on Instagram. It's at Black Women in WOMXN Perfectionism. So Black Women Perfectionism, all one, and Women WOMXN.
Yes, and it'll be in
So
the notes and all that stuff, everybody. So don't you worry if you didn't catch it, you didn't write down quick enough, the X threw you off. It'll
I'm on
be
a
in the
mission
notes.
to get people unbothered.
Yes. But thank you very, very much.
Thank you.